Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you once again for the opportunity to be about the city's business. And we ask for your guidance and your wisdom as we come together, try to plan and budget things that would make our city not only better as far as finances goes, but better for each life and individual that lives here. We ask for all your continued support, protection, and blessings on each of us. In Jesus' name. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Who we calling?
That's John.
Oh.
Hello? Did you say hello?
Yeah, you there?
John.
You know what, you might, if you put that microphone down there.
Can we hear it? Maybe, I don't know.
Hey, John, talk.
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh, hold on.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hold on. Okay, go now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Go again.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
oh, very loudly.
Oh, okay.
A little much.
Actually, everybody can hear John the loudest. All right. Okay, well, we'll get started. This on this evening's workshop on fiscal year budget. Our schedules talk about special revenues, which include the CRAs, the discretionary sales tax, business or the gas tax, the building permit, the building funds, housing, and then debt service, which is a quickie, which we just shift all the money over there and pay the credit card, capital projects, sums up all the things we've already talked about, and then we jump over and talk about the enterprise funds real quick. We picked two of them this evening. We do electric and gas. So on special revenues, wanted to start out with the downtown Leesburg CRA. The numbers actually show a little bit of growth, which is good. How much did so that grew a little bit. If you take that 514 out, that number grows to about 444 versus the 349, so maybe about 100 grand of new growth in that CRA. We're proposing to bring over, there's about $514,000 in appropriated or available cash. And so when you, there's your cash graph for the CRA. So when you go over and you do the budget, our typical operating expenses, everything's about the same. The debt service for the Main Street. What do our operating expenses include? So you get a feel for that.
Insurance.
Insurance, and then we have to pay the CDC out of there.
That's right. And the CDC is the half of the increment, so that's about 150 grand, maybe a little bit more than that.
217.
So the lion's share, the 217 is the CDC. And then my proposal back to the commission is, and I'll tie it back together to the visioning session that we had, was that you use those unallocated funds to do the Main Street Venetian Gardens streetscape project. Also this year, when we did the visioning process, or that visioning works, we did it in a regular meeting, but when we talked about the visioning goals and plans and the strategies, we talked about the swimming pool. I was thinking that you do this project via the cash that we have in the general fund reserve. But tonight I'm going to propose a way that you do this project and that you use these CRA monies and DST monies so you don't touch that cash that we've built up. We got an estimate from GIA or CIA to, I guess that's GIA, which is Frank Bellamo's company, to do a design and a budget estimate for us. His estimate was just a little under $750,000. I'm proposing this though, however, about at $100,000 because the project costs are about $750. Design fee, we're going to figure is probably going to be somewhere another 50 grand or so. We're hoping less than that. So that's about 800. So I put a little extra in that just so I think $1 million for that project is a good working budget.
So can you just remind me, if you would, what the Main Street Venetian Gardens streetscape, what is that exactly?
That's closing down one of the streets We're doing a streetscape on one of the streets, whether it's Canal,
Oh, okay.
Palmetto,
All right, so-
6th,
so the
5th,
connect- the
2nd,
connecting-
to connect
okay.
downtown to Venetian Gardens.
Okay.
So if we use the cash, that will between the payment for CDC, the debt for the Main Street project, and then this project, that's pretty much the function of downtown CRA. The next CRA is the Carver Heights CRA. Carver Heights has shown about that $30,000 of growth. We visited that in the general fund discussion a little bit. Its project expenses are slightly in flux because the kitchen design has not been done. And we actually end up with about $80,000 of cash. And I'll come back to that. In your budget books that you reviewed, you see about 80 grand unallocated. Tonight, I'm proposing how you move forward with that. And again, based on the visioning discussions that we had, whereby if we are moving forward with a concept that we put the aquatic facility at Susan Street, and we look at the broader concept to hook the gymnasium to the Birchwood area to Susan Street and work blight and a major redevelopment plan, I would suggest before we start investing in a bunch of different projects, we really study that plan. We're seeking proposal now to do that plan. And I think that's going to be an expensive plan. So I would say use that cash out of the CRA to pay for that plan to guide us on how we phase through a Birchwood redevelopment plan. So the other portion of this then is to pay the debt on the resource center. We'll have a fixed number on that once the kitchen is done, but we're thinking the debt service will come in around $100,000, and then the operating expenses essentially cover the costs of operating the resource center.
When you say Birchwood redevelopment plan, what do you mean?
I mean, using our eminent right to purchase the dilapidated housing there to remove the blight and crime element so that we can reinvest in it.
And that's where I guess I get a little heartburn, in that I don't think it's going to be done for a reasonable number. I'd be thrilled if I was wrong, and you could buy it at market rates. But market rates, I don't know exactly how many properties are in there, but is less than $1 million for everything in there. I think you're going to be many multiples of that.
Yeah, the number that we had was somewhere probably between 3 and 5.
And that's where I'm not going to get behind that. That's just, I think that's too much money. I think there's other ways to come up with a plan, and then continue to make sure that code enforcement is a priority. And I think there are other ways you can clean up a neighborhood. I mean, looking at the map, you put a 15-foot fence along the property line, and it's no longer an issue from a recreation standpoint. Once they put it on the turnpike. So I can't get behind that.
Well, I'd like to see a plan, what we can develop. I did talk with Mr. Walling, and he's still open to the idea of the donation of that other property coming in. So I think there's that concept to pursue there of the different entryway off of 27 into the recreational complex there. I think I'll compare it to Birchwood a little bit to the swimming pool from this aspect. Is I don't think a swimming pool is worth $3 million to do, and so I'm generally opposed to spending $3 million to do a swimming pool. But as a concept that it's promoting a greater overall scheme, I can see justifying doing it. Similarly with the Birchwood, number one, I think removing the blight there would be alone is I think a tremendous benefit. But if it's part of a master concept plan that deals with Susan Street altogether, to remove the blight and bring all that in, so all that property's on the trail there, then I think it's worth looking at. Just the way that I'm open to a swimming pool with a bigger, a bigger goal in mind of other than just a place to swim, but a bigger project with the whole Susan Street, kind of the same thing. I think we have to look beyond just the fact that you're removing that blight, but what benefit would it be to the overall master concept plan, which goes back to what you're pointing out here, is to maybe take that money and use it for
I think
developing it. I think it's worth looking at.
that's essentially what that money does, is that looks at that concept. Does it include Birchwood? Doesn't. Does it include a swimming pool? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Doesn't. So,
Now,
but I think before you get down that road, we've got to look at it, we've got to phase it, we've got to plan it. So it doesn't commit to anything other than bringing in consultant to help us examine how we tackle that blight.
No,
If
but
we're keeping an open mind about different ways to tackle blight,
Well,
that's something I can support. If you're
Well,
saying
that's
we're going
what-
to spend $75,000 figuring out how to buy a bunch of houses,
no, I think there's multiple concepts that go
Okay.
into that report.
that's
you know, I think
what I was going to ask. That's going to include
I think
also
that-
the whole concept of the.
I think the report looks at buying houses in Birchwood. I think the report looks at where do we best put the swimming pool. I think the report looks at, do we need a teen center? I think the report looks at, do we
Connecting.
put other recreational program in there? I think the report looks at connecting all the properties and putting gateways on 27 down off of Mr. Walling's property. Maybe it's up by Bell's, maybe it's up off Griffin, maybe it's a series of all of those things. So I think there's 5 or 6 things that this report looks at. Where it goes at the end is anybody's guess. But I think before we start spending all those monies that you've talked about, it needs to start with this report.
okay, so this is a Susan Street redevelopment plan.
Susan Street.
Right, and that's why I asked the question. So I'm okay with that
I may have
concept. I
used
think that
the-
makes sense.
Wrong misnomer. And basically, that's the CRA, the Carver Heights CRA plan. The next plan we have for you is, or the CRA, is the 44127 CRA. And the 44127 CRA is basically,
Oh, hey, on the Carver Heights, what's the contract services? 25,000. What do we do?
wraparound services and stuff or something like that.
Are you in the
for
resource
housing.
center? Yeah, those are the services that would revive the people. For the,
Is that what that is, Kim?
Yeah, the West Boston Center's apartment complex.
Would that
that's why I
be-
stopped.
That would be over in housing.
Let me see if I can find it. It would be in NSP.
Is this part of the neighborhood center is spending 25,000 on contract services?
Let's see what, if we got a better
So
title.
I'm assuming that's an outside vendor. So we had it budgeted last year, but never
That's why I'm
before.
wondering if it's carryover. There's no title on it.
Let me
We
get,
can
I
take a look
don't
at it.
have it, let me find out what that is.
Okay. And the insurance went to 0. But we're not allocating any insurance money to the resource center?
It'll just all get wrapped into the policy, and it'll probably end up back over here on
On
the
the
other
other
insurance line over
operations,
there.
okay.
I just didn't want to do it in both divisions.
Okay. Yeah.
So off to the 441 CRA. The 441 CRA is essentially, it's growing. When we reestablished the base year in 2015, we're bringing in now about $500,000, so that's a good thing. And then we extended the life of that 30 years, so the expiration of this CRA is 2045. Long story short, let me just jump to this slide. Because this slide, the problem that we've had for some time now with the 44127 CRA is when we started the CRA in 2008, we issued about $14 million of debt. It crashed the market, so you had a CRA that had $14 million of debt on it with an annual debt payment in the neighborhood of $1 million and no way to pay for it. It's debt, so we spent about half of that money, $7 million, putting up the improvements on 441. When it crashed, we stopped, and then we've been using proceeds to pay off the debt. We thought that we were going to run out of the proceeds roughly fiscal year 2016-ish, 2017-ish.
2018, this would have been the
We
last
started
year.
working to redo the base year, kicking that can down the road. And the two big things that we did was refinance that debt and get the base year readjusted. The base year got that $500,000 of growth in there, and we continued using those proceeds. So the proceeds that are left from this note is about $846,000. The way, when we refinanced it, our debt payment came down to these columns. So our debt payment in 19 is going to be about $375,489, and then it jumps up again to that, about that million mark, $890 in 2022. So assuming that we grow at 5%, we've seen growth in the last few years, so I don't know if that's good or a bad number, but the process is, assuming we bring in this number and it grows, this is this number, so we're getting about the 5%, and we grow that. The plan is use your income from the TIF to pay off the debt. What happens is the growth still won't catch up with your debt payment, but when you marry your growth and your increment with pieces of your cash, you ultimately can cover the debt until you have the growth matching the debt payment. So in English, that means don't spend any of that money. Hopefully the growth catches up, and at the end of the life of the CRA, by about 2029, if these growth numbers pan out, you should have enough incremental revenue to cover your debt, and you'll know that by 2028. And then potentially there's enough growth above the debt payment that at the end of the CRA, right in here, you'd have about, from here, this number to this number, you'd have maybe that's a little bit of $1 million or so that you have over the course of the last few years. We stopped at 2036, so then you got 2036 to 2045, where this increment would be TIF money with no obligation. So feel very good for the next couple years that we have, if this makes sense, that we've successfully kicked that can down the road. If growth proves fruitful, then we should be able to cover it, and we probably really shouldn't start looking to spend this until we get probably to 2021, 22. So this CRA remains sit tight. I think we've mitigated that pretty well. Questions on that CRA? That really wraps up our CRA talk. The next, kind of jumping off now to the other special revenues, the discretionary sales tax. The discretionary sales tax, I put a new proposal in your budget. Your budget shows, I think, a surplus of about $600,000. We got the state estimates in for the DST 2 days ago. That actually increased the surplus to about $718,000 that we hadn't planned. And then third, I also want to bring to your attention, there's about $125,000 of unallocated cash in the DST fund. So here's our proposal of how you move forward with the DST fund. As we talked a little bit in the general fund talks, we transfer some of that for lease payments for police fire vehicles. We transfer also from the police radios. We use another transfer for qualifying replacement of vehicles. Then we to get the $1 million gap, you use the CRA money plus the DST money, and then also we continue moving forward incrementally with the 441 landscaping plan. You end up with using, of this $125,000, you end up using about $56,000 of that surplus. So you use a little bit of surplus, but you knock out these projects. So that's our proposal for the DST plan. Mind you, the DST does not pay any unpurchased debt since the new referendum.
So just a question on that. So I know we spend our cash on projects that we do, but they only want the DST money to be used for borrowed money on future
Right.
projects.
They only want the DST money being used on qualifying purchases since the referendum passed.
So how long do we
The
have?
referendum extending the life of the CR.
So if we
Or DST.
borrow money on a future project, how long does it have to stay borrowed before we can just take the DST money
My
and pay it off?
recommendation, well, the conservative recommendation, if you agree with the county's theory, would be not to put debt in the DST fund that would extend beyond the 30 years of the renewal. The renewal started,
It's 15.
is it 15?
And that's why I was
15.
asking
It doesn't
Fred
make
to get
any
an
sense.
attorney general opinion,
This is-
because this is not the first renewal, and at the first renewal, they allowed you to pay for old projects. This is the county commissioners wanting to justify new projects. That's
But
my-
so we have to borrow money and wait 30, it has to be on a 15-year
No,
term?
no, yeah,
Well, we have-
now it would be a 14-year term.
No, yeah, because it's already a year in.
Okay, so
We
we
wouldn't
can't.
be able to
you-
extend the debt past the deadline for the
Doesn't make
DST,
any
which
sense.
would be 15 years out.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm getting at, you do a project, you borrow the money and put it on a 14-year term or whatever, but then you turn right around and take your money and pay it off. The budget money, I mean, they're being silly on what they're doing, you can't,
It doesn't, yeah.
you can't borrow the money and just turn right around and pay it off and say, well, we borrowed it for a new project.
Right. I think we're saying the same thing.
You can't do that, yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, the fortunate thing is we have these other funds and we're able to
Shift it around.
deal with
Yeah,
it.
to deal with it anyway.
But a lot of cities probably can't.
Yeah.
Now, my only comment on this, because I'm okay with the ideas here, but I'd like to see us not spend that 400 on the 441 until we get a more concrete number on the downtown connection, because I don't believe you can do it for $1 million.
I think, and I
I
think.
mean, I hope you can.
I think those go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I would allocate it like this in the
Yeah.
budget, because the other thing that we would want to do with this 400 for 40 41 is we need to get DC to start working the grant money to get some more landscaping money from the state. So maybe there's another $150 that we can leverage with that. And if we come up with that's the firm number for downtown, and I agree with that, I would come back to this number to funnel downtown and then move back to 441. So I think you can move forward this way and not commit to that project until we're firm on downtown. Gas, pretty much as we discussed the other evening, we leave about $75,000 in local option gas for road resurfacing, and we shift most of it over to the general fund for qualifying street division expenses. On building, really no other major changes in building. I think we show a little bit more growth, and that's about it. Questions there?
Yeah, it looks like we're holding a reserve of 191,000. And I would really like to see us move forward on electronic permitting. Everyone else is going that way, and there's already many
Did I
cities
stick that in
counties.
there? I know Jay mentioned that.
And
We can make an amendment to that.
so, I mean, I think you have the money, and you can't use it for anything else. So it'd be a nice.
I think there's two things that we probably should look at that money with, and I spoke with Jay about this the other day, was reducing permit fees as well as the electronic permitting. We'll get that back in. Any other questions there on the building? Housing assistance is no major changes there. Debt service. That's flip-flop, right?
It's coming from the general fund now.
So essentially, the debt service shows that the general fund is paying for the debt which built the library, police department, all that. Capital projects. I modified this slightly too to reflect kind of where we've been. Our capital projects, we do show the road surfacing. We suggest that we renovate the Venetian Gardens bathroom, the Venetian Gardens Bridge bathroom. That's the bathroom that's near the across from Rogers Park, faces 441. That one we'd like to get looking and spiffied up like the other restrooms in the park. Again, some ADA compliance. On the recreation side,
Does it
Commissioner
make sense to
Early-
keep does it make sense to keep that bathroom there?
knock it down.
I mean, I know that's more expensive, but I think, I don't know, I get a lot of complaints about the location of that and the fact that it's not visible.
This is one right across from the splash pad area.
Yes.
It's right in the corner.
Right there, that corner, yeah.
Oh, the fountain.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the usability of it there, and we better just take the money and think
You
about a
could
better
do-
location somewhere.
You could do the knockdown. We've toyed around and really haven't had the funding and haven't figured out the right location yet, but that boat ramp over by the boat club, that could use a restroom facility coming
You could-
off. We don't know how the land is and that kind of stuff. We didn't really squeeze it into the site plan, but if that's the case, you might want to take those funds, add a little bit more to it, demolish that bathroom, as well as putting in another facility over by the boat ramp. Is that something you want us to?
I think that would
Well,
be
we
better.
need something on the boat ramp.
Yeah.
While
The new ones that
while
are-
we're on this topic, and this is kind of, we haven't done anything on it. We've had the fountain concept that we've kind of floundered with. Is everybody attached to that fountain? If DC went out there and took a hammer to it and it went away, is that something the commission?
Oh, we
would wanna
already
see?
allocated money and everything, and come
We
up
never
with a
did.
degree and a design
Did
and
we have an
everything for
allocation in
that.
there?
Yes,
We had a small one,
there was. There
like
was
50 grand.
It was about 75. And then it kind of got turned over to the Arts Center to develop a concept and find some artist input into creating something else, and that's where it is. We kind of stayed there with when Amy left.
We shouldn't have turned it over to them.
I think there was some good, I think at one point there was some feeling that there was some good ideas there, and that's why that happened.
That could be another $75,000 that you add to this 85 to build a restroom over by the boat ramp.
I think the rest of the boat ramp would be useful.
Yeah, I've never seen the fountain, so I wouldn't miss it.
Well, it's probably because you're watching the road.
That's right, that's right.
I mean, I definitely support the bathroom at the boat ramp. I mean, I think it's just critical. Every time I go there, somebody on my boat's got to go scream at me because they use the porta potty. But what would be the I mean, that obviously won't be done in this year, even if we start it now. So
Boat club,
bathroom.
we might be able to get
No,
that
the
done.
time, if we're gonna do that, the time to do it
Is
is
right now.
when we're doing all the other site work and the community building and connecting to the new, there's gonna be a new lift station construct right there that will be easy to connect to. If there's a sense that you wanna do that, now is the time to do it.
Let me ask too, is that on the new community center, and I can't remember, is the bathroom open, going to be open like it is now for the public?
No.
So we won't have a bathroom on that end either?
The one thing we've done, because that is gonna be gone, we've created an opportunity. We've actually opened the bathrooms that are at the concession stand at Pat Thomas now will be open even when the park isn't, when Pat Thomas is. We've created an opportunity, put some fencing up so that you can get into those bathrooms at any time.
Well, would that, if we have those bathrooms, do you need bathrooms at the boat ramp then, if you can use the?
That's a pretty good haul. That's a pretty good haul.
I mean, what if you took?
I think we're going to long term as we continue to have more things in that area.
Well, what if you took? If we're talking, how far is it from where that bathroom would be in the Pat Thomas bathroom? what's the distance between those two? It's not that far.
Which bathroom are we comparing to?
The new one you're talking about now to put a bathroom
I'm just
in the
thinking
boat ramp.
somewhere in that site plan of the.
Well, I'm just thinking that, we're moving this bathroom to over here and this money over to here. And I'm thinking now, well, if you've got a bathroom right there, 200 yards away from, at Pat Thomas, from where this bathroom would be, and we've got $150,000, and we take that $150,000 and put it into Pat Thomas and doing something there, rather than have two bathrooms 200 yards apart from each other.
Well, first off, from a boater, I mean, if we're going to put, like, now that we're going to have the restaurants, we're talking about adding docks that'll be all the way down through there. A lot of boaters, everybody's not going to get up. If they're not going to the restaurant, they can't go in the restaurant and use the bathroom. They're going to be limited anyway. So I think a bathroom is going to be critical there just for the amount of people. And then everybody gets off the boat. Yeah, there's bathrooms. You got to walk all the way over to the baseball field just to use it.
Basically, what we're talking about here is the beer effect.
And I think if we're gonna, we're gonna hopefully have people becoming to Leesburg by water.
That's not a bad option, though. And to remember, too, where the bathrooms are at Pat Thomas, they're on the far side of the first baseline. So and it's near the parking lot where the boat ramp is. So if you use that boat ramp and you're in the furthest spot of that boat lot, you're actually walking past where the Pat Thomas restrooms are. So it's not out of the way. But to fix up those restrooms and get them to a position and the value that we want, you're still going to need that 85. You probably still need that 75, and then you would have those restrooms that's available for Pat Thomas for the boat ramp.
And looking at this I see what you're
Without messing up the site plan or sticking something down in the corner that's going to infringe on the boat club or the other improvements that we want to keep on the waterfront. So I think that Pat Thomas is a good option.
You just have to hold it a little bit, just 20 seconds longer.
It's not me.
Will you let us take a stab at bringing you some info on that so we can sell that to you?
I think it would be helpful, especially to see it in relation to the new layout. Like that's what I want to see. I want to see how that looks with the new design.
Personally, I was thinking putting it somewhere more towards like where the restaurants are going to be in that area, because that way when people are on the island next to it or the other island that we're going to take it from, they wouldn't have to walk all the way across that.
That's why I was asking if the community center one is, and I didn't even think about that when we did it, but it's not having the open bathrooms at the community center the way we do now. That's
Well, you remember too, we just put the other bathroom on the tip of Ski Beach, so that serves those islands. So I think you can probably lose the fountain and the bathroom, and then invest in Pat Thomas and the bathrooms that we have put already out on the north side of Ski Beach.
Well, all I would say is, if you guys are going to go down that line, A, walk down there, and B, walk with your wife and your kid when they need to pee and see how it goes.
Yeah, it was hard to go from. I know we've got the bathroom now on the other side. The bridge is there, the new bathroom, but before that bathroom was there, it's hard to get a kid from over at that end up to the community center. So now you're kind of flip flopping it, and you're saying, okay, well now if you're up in this area like Jay's talking about, now you got to go, get a kid over to
Could
that
you
one. So
show us two options, like one
Let us put it
near
down
the
on the
restaurants
map.
and one
Let's-
which we can see?
And the restroom that's down in the hole, if you'd like to, if you say that, it is also where the new trail or multi-purpose walkway is being constructed right past that restroom. That's why we thought it would be worth
keeping.
And let me ask you, this is a far-fetched thing, but what if, what do you think the chances would be for whatever restaurant's going to go there if we ask to have an extension, like just on the back, access bathrooms on the back of the building that would be open to the public?
My knee-jerk reaction is we might be able to get Boyd Development to do that if we build the docks.
We got to build something anyway.
Okay.
Well, if we're going to talk about building the docks, I've stated my opinion on this big one restaurant and what we're getting ourselves into there. And if we don't get docks out of that deal, I'm totally against where we were heading with Boyd on if they're not going to build any docks out there, and they're going to get out of it by building a $150,000 bathroom. But that gets back to, I think we should just build the docks ourselves, and we build our little restaurants out there, and we lease them out.
We still have $500,000 for that.
Yeah.
See if
But
we can
anyway,
get us some ideas.
Okay, we'll get you some ideas on those.
And are we going to be talking about the Venetian Gardens later on as far as in budget, or is there something else I can bring up while we're here right now?
Venetian Gardens is pretty much set.
No, not Dozier Circle, not that. I'm talking about as a whole. One of the things I would really love to do, me and DC's talked about it, and I know we've worked on it some small incremental areas, but I'd really like to lift the canopy up, because I mean, here you're driving, you got the most beautiful spot in the world, but you can't see the lake, or really, it's patchy as you drive, because all the trees just hang down so low. If you go to Mount Dorothy, I mean, I bet it's 30 feet to the first branches when you're down at all their parks. I mean, it's just high. And it would be so pretty.
We can cover that as a maintenance item.
Well, the other thing that's going to happen is we're going to be removing a fair amount of the trees in Dozier Circle. You're going to see a very different
This is
look
islands.
there.
But this is completely talking about the islands and all that. When you're coming, like where the bathroom is, or the fountain, or when you pass the splash pad, there's just so many trees. They're just so low. And then some of the other trees have a lot of growth around them. And
We need to
you know.
focus on everything that's east of Martin Luther King Island with regard to your comment.
Well, just everything between Dozier Circle and 12.
Yeah.
Just
You know,
be able to
But
see
that's what
through
we're
that.
saying, though. We're
Yeah.
saying Dozier Circle's going to get covered with the new site plan.
Yeah.
So
From there-
like
from there
tomorrow, we
west.
should be out there going from Martin Luther King Island east and west and trimming those up.
Just to get that view, just to open the park up and really showcase what we have down there, especially when we start getting restaurants and boats and activity. It'd be nice to be, ooh, look. Oh.
We finish off really with capital projects with Commissioner Hurley's request that he brought up at the other meeting, the ski beach lights at 35 and the rails to trails. We'll continue to fund that. So those would be our capital project goals for 19.
And I know these aren't going to get in there for this year, but I want to bring up two of them, and one of them particularly in light of talking about the utilities, people coming from the villages now into Leesburg. So one is the West Main Street improvements there. If you this is going to be the first impression on these people from the villages coming in to have their utilities done, and we're going to not make as good a first impression as if they would if they were coming in out from the 441-27 entryway. So I think it's important to do that West Main Street with more and more in it. And we're not just talking about the Leesburg section of the villages. We're talking about all those villages, the new villages that are going to have the city utilities there that will be coming into town. So if we can make a good first impression, they're more likely to come back and explore Leesburg more. The other one is South 27, and I think a similar thing is that with the even for our existing residents down in South 27 and Legacy and others, I mean, to have a better entryway into Leesburg comparable to what we just did on.
We had talked when the new Orlando Medical Center was being put in about putting our south gateway down in that area, so that they instantly know they're coming into Leesburg when they see that.
Yeah. That's a long way down, though. I'm thinking it's we need some renovation or revitalization down there in the south of Leesburg, where there's some of those. Just as you're coming in past the lake there, so I don't know where to put it, but we need, I think, a good entryway down that way.
Well, Main Street needs an overhaul. West Main needs an overhaul.
I think that's number one, is to do West Main
That's
Street.
just horrible.
And,
But you're right, 27 needs work.
Oh, yeah.
We'll take those
Down
guys.
the road.
Let us.
Because that's a big, West
Wrap
Main,
our
I
head
agree,
around
but
that.
isn't it a big number? You came up with a number.
Yeah, it's a big number, but you also have it that as a complete streets project on the MPO's plan.
Oh, okay.
So we got it. We'll come back with some ideas on that and the 27 issue. But I threw this project in there too because we're trying to wrap around the goals that we made, the vision that we made, and the projects that I think the commission agreed that were things we needed to do. So that's where we were focusing here was the Venetian Garden, Link, the swimming pool, which we allocated, but which is tied back to the Susan Street concept, and then also continuation of the corridor improvements. And then over here, actually, we were saying that this project was going to be a hit on your cash, but I put that in yellow to say I think we've got a way to do that where it's not going to be hit on cash, which will hopefully now go back towards addressing South 27 Gateway issues and maybe West Main Street issues. So the purpose of this is just to demonstrate that I think we do have a plan, a vision that we're following here.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm sorry I'm not there, everybody, and I didn't want to keep interrupting. So just a few bullet points, Al, while you're there. Observation, instead of calling the Birchwood plan, can we change to the Susan Street plan? I think that's more comprehensive and not targeting a particular development. Also, I think the guy that we're talking about hiring, that he has to include a housing element because we do have Leesburg residents who live in Birchwood, so I think a housing element needs to be included. Then you made mention that he's going to determine if a teen center is needed, so I'll be interested to see how he's going to develop that when we hear the scope of work. Also, we talked about the gateway to Venetian Gardens. We mentioned, I think you said Canal Street, some other street. So I'm interested to see how we're going to determine that. We determine that by cost factors, the $1 million that may or may not be enough. So hopefully soon we'll be able to get a determination on what road actually is and the kind of the cost factor between Canal or some other street that we may pick. And then the last thing we may need to talk a little bit about in the building permit section. I was just concerned. We looked at some of the staff costs. The permit specialists looks like they get paid $30,000. The permit specialist 2, I noticed we didn't add in. We added planning and zoning staff, but not to the building department. Not that we need to add staff, but I'm just concerned about the comparison of our staff as compared to other surrounding municipalities. Are we competitive in cost? I'm looking at permit specialist 2. It's looking at like 30 grand. So I'm just wondering, are we really competitive or are we at the bottom level?
If the commission wants to give more money to the permit staff over in the building department, I'll take that direction.
No, I'm just trying to say, are we competitive? Now, are we going to give more money or less money? Or just are we competitive? Doing that, these funds are only spent in one department. We can't put that in general fund. But I'm just saying, are we competitive in our staff? And whether it be the inspector, looks like the building official makes almost 100 grand. The deputy makes 70. So I'm just looking at the staffing with the expertise that we're going to need and the growth that we're expecting. Are we competitive?
Your building official will tell you you're not competitive. I think we have not lost people there. We also have an internal conflict. I think when you start going to address these salaries, we've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now. I think at a point we've got to stop making these adjustments and start letting attrition take over. I also think, and I don't know if that's reasonable to existing employees, but we've got 477 other people that we got to think about. I also understand we got workload issues there. But at the end of the day, I think we've made huge strides to keep everybody fair, to keep everything moving along, and I think we just need to make a harder call. I know Jay is worried. Jay has petitioned me 3 or 4 times to make increases to those positions, and frankly, I've stalled on it. So I think we need to set tight and see where those positions go. I think if we continue to adjust these positions, every department head's going to continue to come to us and say it's not fair. And I think we're drawing a little bit of an arbitrary line, but if we don't draw this arbitrary line soon, we're going to not only be pricing ourselves out of the market, we're going to be increasing stuff. So I think we got to take a wait and see approach. And so I did not program more money for those positions, even though the building department obviously has it. And I think it's a problem that we need to address if and when it occurs.
Well, are both building and permitting, Dan and Jay, both asking for additional help?
Dan is asking for additional help. Jay is asking for his permit techs to have additional money. Because, so, I'm going to say that in English. Dan over at Planning and Zoning wants another planner. Jay wants his permit assistants to get more money.
You got something in the back of the room.
Did I summarize that correctly, Jay?
You did. I'd like to add something to it if you love me, but that's up to you.
We touched on it last night. I mean, at least put it out. I mean, I'm really worried that we are going to get hit behind the 8 ball in those departments when all the growth starts in another year.
Understood.
And I think they're struggling now. I like the way you put it. You asked me to get maximum work out of them, and you are clearly doing that. But
It's a touchy situation. I understand it. But my feeling is that the organization as a whole is at a little bit of a tipping point. Everybody's been adjusted. We've tried to do it as reasonable as possible. And I think these adjustments need to stop. And I think we need to reasonably adjust pay and wages on an annual basis. We need to keep up with it. And that's why I brought you all the proposals that said, bring up the bottom. That way we keep staying competitive at entry-level rates. And if we got to bring in somebody because somebody lost and we pay them a little bit more, then we do that. I don't want to see you guys coming back at me with a cannon that says, Minter, what the heck have you been doing? We gave everybody big fat raises and you're using your executive authority to continue to hire above and you're increasing our personnel costs. Okay, so that's my concern. A, that you see me using my authority beyond what I should to increase pay. B, we've done this reasonably and fairly for the last 4 years. C, you pay me to keep our department heads and managers in line and to deal with these problems when they come up. And D, if you continue to give these raises because department heads are worried about losing people, it's going to cause organizational ripple effects. If we give an extra $1 or $2 to those building department techs, the next people who are going to be in here yelling at you is every administrative 2 in the city. And I got administrative 2s in every department. So I understand it. I hear it. My advice to you is let me deal with it. If you say, give them more money, I'll give them more money.
Well, you're not going to believe this, but I actually agree with you.
Holy cow.
Yeah, holy cow. We ran into a problem a couple of years ago with one of the departments, and it basically was I'd say a veiled threat, but it was even more than that. So I really think we do have to be careful with what's going on. If we've got them so overworked to add another person, then that's one thing, but not to keep answering to the threats.
To me, it's not an overwork issue.
Okay.
To me, there's the fear that department heads think that our employees are going to go off to another organization, i.e. the county, for more money. If that's the case, then we'll deal with it. Okay, because internally, we've got a situation where our customer service reps are right at a position that if we increase the building department a couple of bucks, then I'm going to start losing customer service reps the building department. Okay, I don't want to stop people, but then, then Jim's going to be in here griping that he's losing his customer service reps, or I'm going to have other administrative aid stuff. So it's a difficult balance. I respect where Jay's at, but I think that at the end of the day, we need to slow down. We need to keep up with our COLAs and merit system, and we need to see what happens. And if this attrition happens, we'll have to deal with it. And I think we have the resources and the capable people to plug holes when they occur. And I think if we keep answering these gotta pay me more money issues, they're never gonna end.
Well, I don't disagree with you on that. My whole point was kind of a joint, being competitive. I think we always need to be mindful of being competitive. You never want to lose a seasoned, trained person. I mean, we just got you trained. I don't want to lose you somewhere.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then secondly, it goes to workload, and I mean, I would like to see, I mean, if they're asking for 2, I think that it would be reasonable to add 1.
Yeah, that's back to the, and by the way, on that note, on the planning and zoning side, we got the state revenue numbers in today, and they're up about 50 grand. So I went back to my office and cried because I didn't want to spend that money and even budget for it. But realistically, you probably should come up with that estimate. Then that's going to buy Dan extra help. So I think the next draft you see from me will have the extra planner in it.
And
Next as in,
Excuse me?
next as in when?
Like before you approve the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got to do all the work we did Tuesday night, and so when you see the next draft of the budget, September or August, it'll have the extra planner recommendation.
And I guess because I certainly don't want to lose people, and I might make a different decision, but I think it's also important we hire Al to run the city, and I just get uncomfortable with the idea of us determining pay for departments, because we give our input, and I think that I do share concerns, and I don't want to lose people, but I'm just a little uncomfortable telling the city manager pay a department.
I think what you
I
haven't seen a department head in the 25 years that I've been a city manager that thinks their people get paid enough money. That's what you pay me for, okay? And since we've changed pay, we've had people leave the city, go to the county, and come back to the city. It's a natural matriculation of the business. That's what you pay me for.
Well, I'm not going to tell you how much to give them. I just want to be competitive, whatever that is. I think we should always strive to be competitive.
I wouldn't say that our work environment is uncompetitive. I don't think we provide good benefits, even though we're asking some stuff. I think we need to let this issue drop. It's my advice to you, but I will take your direction.
Could we let Jay just say what he needs to say before he falls out of his chair back there?
The building permit techs have always been classified in the city of Leesburg as admins, and they're not admins. It's a totally different type of work. Last year, we reclassified them to the proper title, what they should, which is permit specialist. It's a very diverse type of work. It's nothing to do with administrative work. You got to learn permitting, you got to learn like contractor licensing, insurance, you got to be able to somewhat read a set of plans, determine what type of permits has to be issued, insurance requirements, tracking the stuff to all of the other departments, maintaining files. It's a very complicated thing. It's not like you can just hire somebody off the street and they hit the ground running. It doesn't work that way. I've had a lot of admins in the past that you wouldn't believe how many problems a bad admin, or I should say admin, a permit tech can cause you. They lose files, they give the wrong plans to the wrong permit or contractor, they issue permits to someone who doesn't have a proper license. They can create havoc in a building department. You know, I came back here 2 years ago to a building department that had major problems. And we've been able to put the proper staff together, in my opinion, to form the best building department in Lake County. Last year at this time, I lost 2 inspectors over salary to Lake County. It's just taken me 12 months to hire one back. I'm still 1 short. That's how competitive it is out there. And when we changed these to permit specialists, I don't know we ever did a salary comparison for admins to a permit specialist. I have done that personally myself. Presently, right now, an entry-level position as a permit specialist, we're about $1.10 an hour less than the average of the cities and counties we survey. And that's entry-level. These women are not entry-level. They are the best permit specialists I've ever worked with in 24 years. They make everything smooth. We get it in, we get it processed, we get it out. You get a bad group up there, stuff doesn't get processed in. Give you an example. I was talking to the county building official. Right now, the county takes anywhere from 4 to 6 months to get a permit from them. And he says it's because of his permit staff up front. They're just not getting things processed smoothly. We're getting things in and out anywhere from 5 to 10 days. We don't want to go to that. If we lose our front staff, everything gets messed up. I mean, we're losing one of our staff now. She's transferring to HR. So we're going to be down a position already. I mean, the other two, you know, they're basically saying, hey, look, I can go to the county right now and get plus or minus $1.50 to $2 an hour raise. We lost 2 last year to the county. We don't want to lose our only 2 we have left and get back to the whole retraining process. It takes months and months and months. And that's if you get the right person. You get the wrong person, they never get trained properly because they just don't get it. There's so much involved in it. So what I had proposed is when we changed their titles last year, we never addressed their pay scale. I am proposing a new pay scale for these positions based on the salary survey of what other permit specialists are being paid in the area. We want to be competitive. We want the best. We have the best right now. We do not want to lose the best in the county, in my opinion. That's my professional opinion. They are the best in the county. We don't want to lose them. We don't want to start back over. You get a bad specialist in there, the whole project, it's like a foundation to a building. If it comes out of the ground wrong, the whole project's a problem. Same way with permitting. We're talking about, you know, a couple dollars an hour out of a fund that's not coming out of general fund. It's coming out of a building department fund that can't be spent anywhere else. I say we pay to keep qualified people. We're not overpaying them. We're paying them an average rate of what that position pays. We have no other positions in the city that are permit specialists. I don't see how that has anything to do with what an admin makes. It's a totally different job.
Thanks, Jay.
Yes, ma'am. I do have a comparison here if y'all would like to see it.
Give it to him, Jay.
And I don't disagree with any of that. I don't think I'm in a position to do that because I'm not the city manager. But that is why I think it's important that as a commission we don't address this, because I don't want this every year. I don't want to hear that from every department head because they can all give passionate reasons that may be right, may be wrong. I don't know. I just don't even want to comment on this because I think it's beyond what we're tasked to do in a city manager form of government. It's just from a procedural standpoint, I don't think it's appropriate.
One of the suggestions, and I thought we had gotten it in the budget, was we did change the title on Jay's request from admin 2 to the building permit specialist. We can easily adjust the pay range so that if people leave, then we can come back and through attrition tackle this. Jay gave you a couple things that I would come back from Jay's approach. Jay is one of the employees who left our employment and came back. One of the people that he left, one of the permit techs that left, went to HR. So that provides opportunity then to go back through the adjustment of the ranges and then readdress salaries when people shift. I think if you, at this stage, after 5 years of working with people's pay, we've got to do it a different way. We can do it by changing titles, we can do it by changing pay ranges, and we can eventually get there. But if we continue to listen to the department heads on this issue, we're not putting the organization in the spot that it needs to be. There's 477 people, there's 80 different types of jobs that we have, and we need to manage that from a general perspective, not a department perspective. That's my opinion. I appreciate where Jay's at, and I'll take your direction.
No, I think what you said is fine. Now, if this person going over to human resources, if they are a permitting specialist, they're actually making more, according to this, than they would in HR. Are they willing to take a decrease in salary?
I don't.
Well, not at this time, but what is proposed here?
Does she get more money?
It's a major pay grade for HR.
It's a big jump.
So it would be the same whether they're at permitting or at HR?
More money.
I gotta look at the chart. There was more money,
She's going
in this
to a-
particular position, there was more money in
She's going
HR.
to a higher pay rate.
She's going to a higher
Okay,
pay rate.
okay.
And
She's
she was
probably at a
moving from a 117 or a 119.
She's probably a 119,
going to
she's going from a
122.
122.
So it's actually a promotion for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's in the range, so she'll get probably a 5%.
So if we adjust the range, when we go back and fill her hole in building, then we can pick that up
No,
and address
I
that
think what
dollar
you're
where
saying is
Jenny's at.
fine.
Well, if they've been reclassified and we haven't adjusted their pay accordingly, that's something that you should look at. If we didn't, we didn't, and it's not irresponsible or too big a ask. But I want to say, and I understand where the mayor's coming from, and so I'm not going to beat this horse. But on the other side of the coin, if you're putting people in directors' positions and you don't trust their judgment, you should fire them. And if you do trust their judgment to run a department, you should give some credit to them when they come to you with their situations, and not just pull the city manager card.
You know, and I appreciate what you said, but I think when everybody's perspective as a management, everybody starts losing a little perspective when it comes to paying your people.
Okay, and I get that's what I'm.
And that's it's not that I've got a department head that needs to be terminated because we disagree. I've got a department head, and most of them are this way. Everybody thinks they're worth more than they are. It's a pay issue, and I think they lose perspective on that. And I think there's a management fallback position where department heads and supervisors try to get the spoils of their employees by getting more money in their pocket. And at the end of the day, I don't think that's a good management approach. I mean, it's about money, but it's not about money. But I think we got to depend on our managers to encourage and promote our organization without saying, I'll give you more money to keep you happy. Because in a couple of years, when you get more money, you're still not going to be happy. So it's about money, but it's not.
I agree.
So I want my department heads, our department heads, to have good skills, good management techniques, solve problems, finance correctly, and treat their employees fairly. And I don't necessarily think you need to do that by constantly sliding them more money when they complain. Employees will complain.
I think there's a middle ground too, though.
I agree. And I think we're at the middle ground, and that's why I'm passionate about this.
Okay.
We had a 3-2 vote last year when I came to you guys to ask for more money. I think that's middle ground. Moving on. Any other questions there on those CIPs or those projects? Okay, so enterprise funds. We have about a $165 million budget. The biggest fund in that is the electric fund, and there's one line in that 300-page book that's 30% of your budget. Do we need to talk about anything else? And we don't really control it. We're in a conglomerate that controls it with 14 other cities. So, but by and large, the electric fund looks pretty much the same. So it's 67, $69 million. Most of it changes in that one line, charges for services there, which is the power number. So there's your St. Lucie, your power purchase is 41 million. 40, I guess that's more like 42. Our R&R, we're trying to, I think that there's a balance. We've had some real aggressive R&R programs. I think the balance in the electric fund, what we can accomplish and what we can reasonably do is somewhere around $3 million worth of work. That seems to be the number. I think, did we have like a $6 million CIP budget a couple of years ago? We got about $3 million of it done. So, and then that stuff starts to roll over. So I think we've got healthy projects. The biggest projects, we were talking Dixie, some transformer stuff, in the R&R there. On the cash level, the electric fund continues to look pretty solid from 17 to 22.3 million. So they're putting a couple of bucks away. So, you know, they have decent reserves and decent R&R up above their cash requirement. On a rate level, I think this is probably one of the proudest accomplishments we've done in the past few years. We've reduced the rate actually from its high of 138 down to 117. That's 16%. And when we had the overflow of the BCPA money, we actually got that down to 105. And remember, too, this was scheduled to go from 138 to 142 when the city did the 3-year incremental 5% increase. So I think we've done well here. The two lines here chart average muni and IOU costs, and we talked a little bit about that in the general fund discussions. So with that,
on the electric, I know we don't budget money for FEMA reimbursement, but are we expecting to get any for FEMA from the hurricane?
Yeah, I don't know. Overall, I think our Irma request is going to be in the neighborhood of about 1.8 million. Electric is somewhere between 750 and $1 million of that 1.8. Then the next biggest category is I digress, is the debris, and that's somewhere around $500,000.
So we never made any budget adjustments for that? Did we be able to just absorb those costs? Or?
We did a budget adjustment for some of like building repairs.
Yeah.
No, the rest of it we were able to absorb.
So that is going to be like a...
We're probably going to overrun on the solid waste division, and we just, knew that we would get that back. So
Right.
I did a budget adjustment for that. But the rest of it's...
Okay.
Gas, and gas looks very much similar. And we talked about that really with the villages, so I don't really have anything specific to point out to you on gas.
What's commercial 2? It's new.
That is a village rate there that reflects the competitors out there.
Okay.
And it's based as I believe there's 6 commercial rates, depending upon the amount of gas that you're actually using. And then we look at it each year annually and adjust that rate as needed.
Okay.
And that's 2,000 to 9,000 firms a year is the commercial 2 rate.
Okay.
Cash a little bit down there. Brandy, did this include the money we already pinched off for the projects and for the village expansions?
Yeah.
So I think we were sitting a little bit higher before, but we've transferred out of gas for the Venetian Gardens. And then we've done about, and we did, it was $1.5 million. It was
That
like
may not all be
750 and 750 for the,
501 was 680.
that's reflected in this?
Have we paid that?
We received the invoice for it.
So that's not in
It may
this.
not be, but it definitely
So
the TV is out
this
there.
number actually might be a little bit, another $1 million lower, which includes villages numbers. But if everything goes as planned, that number should go up
Yeah.
very nicely. And with that, that's our budget presentation for the evening.
Questions?
Bob, did you just say you had a question?
I have what?
Did you just say you had a question?
No, I said I have no questions.
I was thinking we're canceling the meeting and everything.
Well, you're just out of luck, brother.